The night was colder than usual. A thin white fog moved through the empty streets, and the street lamps flickered like they were afraid of the darkness. Evan Hawley, a human engineer living on an alien world, walked back to his small apartment after a long shift. His breath came out as white clouds, and his hands were numb even inside his gloves. Humans were rare on this planet. Most aliens avoided them. Most did not trust them. And Evan, a quiet man who kept to himself, never tried to change their minds. He lived alone, worked alone, and returned home without ever expecting anyone to knock on his door. But tonight was not a normal night. As Evan reached the stairs leading to his apartment, he felt something strange. The air felt heavy, almost nervous. He looked around, but the streets were empty. Only the cold wind answered him. He pushed open the building door and walked inside. The moment he stepped into his apartment, he closed the door behind him and sighed. Another silent night. Another cold evening. Another lonely meal. He took off his gloves and turned on the heater. Warm air began to fill the room. Evan placed his tools on the table and walked toward the small kitchen. Then, knock, knock, knock. Evan froze. It wasn't a normal knock. It was soft, weak, almost like someone tapping the door with trembling fingers. At first, he thought he imagined it. No one visited him. No one even liked him. But the knock came again. Knock, knock. This time it sounded desperate. Evan slowly stepped toward the door. His heartbeat quickened, and a cold feeling ran through his chest. He unlocked the door and pulled it open, just a little. His eyes widened. A tiny alien girl stood there in the freezing hallway. She was no more than 8 years old. Her skin was a faint lavender color, glowing softly in the dim light. Her clothes were torn, and her feet were bare on the cold floor. Her small hands held a glowing pendant close to her chest, as if it was the only thing keeping her alive. Her big silver eyes stared up at him, full of fear, pain, and hope. Her lips shook when she tried to speak. Please. Human, help me. Her voice cracked. Evan opened the door wider, shocked. What happened to you? Where are your parents? She shook her head. Tears slid down her cheeks. They kicked me out. I have nowhere to go. Kicked you out? Evan repeated, confused. Why? For unpaid rent. Her voice trembled. My mother is sick. She could not work. She could not pay. The landlord threw us out in the cold. She looked down. Then, my mother disappeared. Evan felt a sharp pain in his chest. A child alone on the streets? At night? In this weather? But something else bothered him. No landlord would throw out a child alone. Something was wrong. Come inside, Evan said softly. He stepped aside, but before the girl could move, a sudden sound echoed through the stairwell. Heavy footsteps. More than one. Coming closer. The girl's eyes widened in terror. She pressed her back to the wall and clutched her glowing pendant as if her life depended on it. No. They found me, she whispered. Please don't let them take me. Evan looked toward the stairs. Shadows moved. 2 tall alien guards, armored and armed, appeared at the top. Their helmets reflected the dim hallway light. They walked slowly, scanning the floor like hunters searching for prey. Their voices were low and cold. She must be close, one guard said. We searched door by door, the other replied. The girl's legs shook. Please, please. Help me, she begged again, her voice almost too soft to hear. Evan felt a wave of fear. Helping her could bring danger. Guards never searched for children unless something serious was happening. If he hit her, he might become a target. But when he looked at her small, freezing, shaking, he couldn't step back. Stay behind me, Evan whispered gently. I won't let them take you. The girl's silver eyes widened, filled with sudden hope. The footsteps grew louder. The guards were only a few steps away from Evan's door. Evan took a deep breath, grabbed the girl's hand, and closed the door quietly. He locked it quickly and pulled the curtains down. The girl squeezed his hand tightly. Outside, the guard's voice echoed, "Check this floor. No one leaves." The cold night suddenly became even colder. And Evan realized this was only the beginning. Evan kept the lights low. Only the small heater glowed in the corner, warming the room. The little alien girl stayed close to him, her tiny hand still shaking in his. Outside the door, the guard's footsteps thudded through the hallway like slow, heavy drums. The girl flinched with every sound. Evan crouched beside her. "It's okay. They won't come in," he whispered, but he wasn't sure. "Not at all." He guided her to sit near the heater. She slowly lowered herself onto the floor, stretching her fingers toward the warm air. Her skin, a pale lavender, looked even softer and more fragile in the dim light. Evan handed her a blanket. "Here, you're freezing." "To thank you," she whispered. For a moment, they stayed silent. The tension in the apartment was thick, like the cold fog outside had followed them indoors. Finally, Evan spoke. "What's your name?" The girl hugged the blanket around herself. "Leary," he smiled softly. "I'm Evan." Leary nodded weakly. Then Evan noticed her pendant, the glowing object she held so tightly. It pulsed with a gentle blue light, almost like a heartbeat. Leary's fingers trembled around it, not with fear now, but with purpose. Like she was protecting it as much as she was protecting herself. "What is that?" Evan asked quietly. "Your pendant?" Leary looked down at it. She opened her mouth, but no words came. She seemed afraid to speak, afraid even to look at it for too long. Instead, she asked, "Why did you help me?" Evan blinked. "Because you needed help." "No one helps my people," she whispered. "Especially humans." Evan sighed. "Maybe they should." Leary stared at him, confused by his kindness. Suddenly, thud. Something hit the wall outside his apartment. Leary gasped and grabbed Evan's sleeve. "They're searching every home." Evan gently placed a finger to his lips. "Quiet." They both listened. Footsteps moved down the hall, slow and careful. The guards were checking each door, shining lights under the gaps, listening for movement. Evan whispered, "Leary, why are these guards looking for you? You said you were kicked out for rent, but no landlord sends soldiers." Leary closed her eyes as if deciding whether she could trust him. Then she slowly opened her hand and lifted the pendant. It glowed brighter. Evan leaned closer, fascinated. Leary whispered, "This is why." Evan frowned. "Your pendant? It's not a pendant." She swallowed hard. "It's a memory core. My mother gave it to me before she disappeared." Evan straightened. "A memory core? What's inside?" Leary shook her head violently. "I don't know everything. Mama only said, never let the guards take it. Never let them open it. Never trust anyone. Except me?" Evan asked. Her small voice trembled. "I didn't trust you. I was just cold. I thought you might, maybe, not shut the door on me." Evan's chest tightened. "I won't, but why does the core matter so much?" Leary looked at it with fear and sadness. "My mother worked for the council," she whispered. "She found something terrible. Something powerful aliens did. Something wrong. She put the proof inside this." Evan felt his stomach drop. "Proof? Like crimes?" Leary nodded. "If the guards get it, the truth will disappear forever. And they will kill anyone who knows." Evan understood now. Leary wasn't just a child without a home. She carried something dangerous. Something that could destroy powerful people. Something worth hunting for. "And your mother?" Evan asked softly. "I think they took her," Leary whispered. Tears filled her silver eyes. "I think they hurt her. She told me to run. She hid the core in my pocket, and pushed me through a back door. I heard shouting. Then, nothing. Evan clenched his fists. His heart burned with anger and sadness. A child carrying her mother's last message to the world. Running in the cold, alone. No wonder she was terrified. But before he could speak, another sound echoed through the hallway. A mechanical hum. Scanning lights. Closer. The guards are checking life signs, Evan whispered urgently. If they scan the door, they'll know someone is hiding. Leary pressed her hands over her mouth, trying not to breathe loudly. A bright blue line of light passed across Evan's doorframe from the outside. The scanning device buzzed. Leary whispered through shaking lips, "They're going to find me." Evan quickly moved to the cupboard and opened it. "Hide in here now." Leary crawled inside. Evan closed the door just as knock. Knock. Knocked out. A guard's deep voice echoed. "Human, open the door." Evan's heart pounded. He stood still. The knock came again, harder. "Open, now." Inside the cupboard. Leary held the glowing core tightly. Evan took a breath and reached for the lock. If he made one wrong move, both of them could disappear tonight. Asterisk. Evan's hand hovered above the door lock. His fingers shook, not from the cold, but from fear. Behind him, the small cupboard remained closed, and inside it Leary sat curled up, holding her breath, her tiny hands wrapped around the glowing memory cord. Outside. Knock. 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 The sound was like metal fists hitting wood. "Human," a guard growled. "Open the door." "Routine check." "Routine?" Evan almost scoffed. Nothing about tonight was routine. He slowly unlocked the door. The lock clicked loudly in the silent apartment, and even that sound made Leary flinch inside the cupboard. Evan opened the door just a crack, only enough to look out. 2 alien guards stood there. Both were tall, their armor reflecting the dim hallway lights. Their insect-like eyes glowed faint blue behind their masks. One held a scanning device. The other rested his hand on a pulse rifle. The rifle was aimed slightly downward. But ready, the first guard stepped closer, towering over the doorframe. "Humans don't usually stay quiet when we knock," he said coldly. Evan forced a small smile. "Maybe humans just like peace and quiet." The guard didn't laugh. His eyes narrowed instead. "We detected movement on this floor," he said. "We want to make sure no one is hiding from us." Evan shrugged casually. "Just me here. Came home from work. Ate something. Tried to sleep. Pretty normal day." The guard pushed the door wider and looked inside. Evan's heart hammered. He blocked most of the doorway, but if the guard insisted on coming in, he would find Leary. The guard scanned the room. The scanner hummed, releasing a thin beam of blue light across the floor, walls, and furniture. Evan kept his face calm, even though sweat ran down the back of his neck. After a moment, the guard lowered the scanner. "No unusual life signs," he said. The second guard stepped forward. "Check the bedroom." Evan's stomach tightened. "Is that necessary?" "It is if you're hiding someone." Evan stayed silent. His silence made them suspicious. The first guard took a step forward to enter the home, and then the scanner beeped. Everyone froze. The guard looked at the device. "Hold on, a faint reading?" Evan's heart dropped. The cupboard. It had to be picking up Leary's faint life signature. The guard slowly lifted his head. His insect-like eyes locked onto Evan. "What is this?" he asked quietly, dangerously. Evan forced a confused expression. "What is what?" The guard pointed the scanner toward the cupboard. Evan stepped in front of it instantly. "Just old equipment. It gives off heat sometimes. I'm an engineer, remember? I fix broken stuff." For a moment, no one moved. The hallway was silent. The guard stared at Evan. Evan stared back. Then a loud shout echoed down the hall. "Captain, we found tracks near the stairwell." Both guards whipped their heads toward the voice. Tracks? The captain snapped, yes. Small footprints. Moving down toward the lower levels. The guard turned back to Evan, eyes hard. If you see anything, any strange child, report immediately. Do not try to help. Evan nodded calmly. Of course. The guard stepped back. Humans always say that. Then he turned around, and both guards rushed down the hallway, their heavy boots thudding toward the stairs. Evan slowly closed the door. He locked it. Then he leaned against it and finally let out the breath he had been holding. It came out shaky. He moved to the cupboard and opened it. Leary's small face peeked out, her eyes wide and wet. Are they gone? She whispered. Evan nodded. For now. Leary crawled out slowly, hugging the glowing core. She sat on the floor, her hands trembling with relief and fear. I almost ruined it, she said softly. I almost got you caught. No, Evan said. You did nothing wrong. You're a child. They're the ones hunting you, not the other way around. Leary hugged her knees to her chest. The scanner read me. I tried not to breathe. Evan knelt beside her. You did great. They didn't see you. For a moment, they were quiet. Then Leary looked up at him. Why do humans help people even when it's dangerous? Evan thought for a moment. Because someone has to, he said softly. Leary looked down at the glowing core. Mama said this core can save many lives. But only if it reaches the right people. She said evil grows when good people stay silent. Evan nodded slowly. Your mother sounds brave. She is, Leary whispered. Or was. Evan placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. We'll find her. And we'll protect the core. Leary's small silver eyes lifted. Hope glimmered there, fragile but real. But their moment was shattered by another sound. Scratching noise. At the door. Evan turned sharply. A symbol was being carved onto his door from the outside. Sharp metal scraping wood. Leary gasped and grabbed Evan's arm. That symbol. It means danger. It means they know someone helped me. Evan's blood ran cold. The scratching stopped. Silence. Then heavy footsteps moved away. Evan walked to the door slowly, heart pounding. He looked through the peephole. No one was there. But the carved mark on his door confirmed everything. They were watching him now. He was no longer just helping a child. He was now a target too. Asterisk. Evan stood staring at the carved symbol on his door. The edges were sharp, freshly cut. The symbol looked like 3 claws slicing downward, a warning used by the elite guards. It meant one thing. Someone inside this home interfered with the council's orders. Leary stood behind him, shaking. Her voice was small. This mark. It means they will watch you now. Night and day. They will listen. They will wait. Evan closed his eyes for a moment, gathering his breath. He had helped her. And now his quiet life was gone. He turned away from the door and returned to the living room. Leary stood in the center of the room, clutching her glowing core. Her small shoulders were trembling under the blanket. Sit, Evan said gently. She sat on the floor, her knees pulled to her chest. The heater hummed softly beside them, the only warm sound in the cold apartment. What you told me before. About the council and your mother. I need to understand more, Evan said. I can't protect you if I don't know what's inside that memory core. Leary held the core close, almost refusing. Mama said only the safe people should know. If the wrong people open it, everyone good will be hurt. Evan leaned forward. Leary, I'm on your side. But I need to know why they're hunting you like this. Why they marked my door. She took a long, shaky breath. Then she slowly lifted the glowing core in both hands. This, she whispered, is not just a memory core. It is a key. A key? Evan asked. Yes. It opens a hidden archive inside the council's main tower. Mama worked in the data sector. She found records, secret files, messages from leaders planning something evil. They wanted to start a war between our people and the humans on other colonies. Evan's eyes widened. A war? Why? Leary's voice cracked. To take land, resources, power. They wanted to blame humans for attacks that never happened. Mama found the truth. If the core reaches the right people, the whole plan will be exposed. Evan felt a chill run down his spine, not from the cold, but from how massive the danger really was. So the guards want the core, he said quietly, because if the truth spreads, the council collapses. Leary nodded, tears forming. That is why my mother told me to run, she said. Leary, don't let anyone take this. Don't trust the council. Don't let them find you. Then she pushed me away from our home. Soldiers came. I heard her scream. Her small voice broke and she cried into her blanket. Evan felt anger burn inside him. No child should carry this weight. No child should hold a world's truth in her tiny hands. He placed a hand on her shoulder. Hey, you're not alone anymore. Leary looked up at him with teary silver eyes. Why are you helping me? You could shut the door and be safe. Evan looked away for a moment, thinking. Then he said quietly, because I've seen people suffer in silence before. And I promised myself never to walk away again. Leary didn't understand fully, but she nodded softly. A loud noise suddenly echoed through the building. A door slammed downstairs. Voices shouted. Boots stomped upward. Leary panicked. They're back. They're coming up. Evan rushed to the window. He carefully pulled the curtain aside. Down on the street, a black armored vehicle had parked outside. More elite guards poured out. They're sweeping the whole building, Evan whispered. They won't stop until they find you. Leary clutched the core tightly. What do we do? Evan took a deep breath. We have to leave now. Leary's eyes widened. Leave? Into the street? They have scanners everywhere. I know, Evan said. But staying here is worse. If they break in, both of us are finished. Evan grabbed his small engineer's bag and pulled out tools, wires, batteries, metal rods. He quickly assembled something on the table. What is that? Leary asked. A noise disruptor. It will break their scanners for a few minutes. He worked fast, fingers moving quickly. Sparks flew as he connected the last wire. Leary watched, amazed. Humans can build anything? Evan gave a small smile. Humans try. That's our thing. The disruptor hummed to life. Right then, bam. Bam! Someone pounded on the apartment door again. Open immediately. A guard shouted, "Lir," I gasped. They're here. Evan grabbed her hand. Stay close. Don't let go. He stuffed the disruptor into his bag, picked up a jacket, and walked toward the back window, the one that led to the fire escape. He pushed it open. Cold air hit them like a slap dot below. The street was dark and silent. Behind them, bam. Break the door, bam. The door shook. Evan lifted Leary and set her on the fire escape. Ladder, go, quickly. She climbed down with shaking hands as the door behind them cracked under another hit. Evan climbed after her and pulled the window shut. Just as the apartment door broke open, guards rushed inside, but the window was empty. Asterisk. Evan and Leary were already halfway down the building, disappearing into the cold, dark night, with the truth in their hands and an entire empire hunting them. Asterisk. Cold wind pushed against Evan and Leary as they climbed down the fire escape. The metal ladder shook under their feet, icy and slippery. Leary's small hands gripped the bars tightly, her breath turning into white mist. Evan kept one hand below her, ready to catch her if she slipped. Above them, the sound of crashing doors echoed through the building. Search every room. A guard shouted. She's close. Another growled. Evan's heart hammered like a drum. They had only seconds. When they reached the bottom, he lifted Leary to the ground. Her feet touched the cold street, and she ran to the shadow of a dumpster, hiding behind it. Evan joined her, pulling his jacket around her small shoulders. Keep your head down, he whispered. And stay close. Leary nodded quickly. They waited in the shadows as guards leaned out Evan's broken window above, scanning the streets with glowing blue lights. There! One guard pointed. Evan froze, but the guard pointed at something else, a stray animal running across the road. The guards cursed and turned away. Evan gently touched Leary's shoulder. We need to move, quietly. They slipped out of the alley and into the deeper parts of the city, where tall buildings blocked the moonlight. The streets here were darker, colder, and filled with broken signs, abandoned shops, and old junk. The perfect place to disappear, but also the perfect place to get caught. Every few minutes, armored vehicles rolled past, their searchlights sweeping through the streets like giant blue eyes. Leary stayed pressed against Evan's side. She didn't speak, but he could feel her fear. After several blocks, they stopped behind an old vending stall. Evan crouched to catch his breath. Leary looked at him. Where are we going? To the neutral zone, Evan said. It's the only place where the council's guards can't touch you. Leary blinked. But that's across the river. Far away. Evan nodded. I know. And they have scanners at every bridge, she whispered fearfully. I know that too. Evan exhaled. That's why we won't use a bridge. Leary's eyes widened. Then, how? Evan opened his bag and took out the small device he built earlier, the disruptor. It hummed softly now. Ready? This little thing, Evan said, holding it carefully, can confuse scanners for a short time. Not for long, but long enough for us to cross through a blind spot. Leary stared at it like it was magic. Humans are strange. You build things so fast. Evan smiled. When someone needs help, we find a way. She hugged her memory core tighter. Suddenly crack. A loud noise echoed down the alley. Leary gasped and jumped. Evan pulled her behind a crate. Voices followed. Search this sector. She couldn't have gone far. Track heat signatures. Leary's breathing quickened. Evan. They're everywhere. Evan looked around. They needed to move again. He held Leary's hand and ran down a narrow path between two buildings. The ground was wet and slippery, scattered with old metal scraps. Leary's feet slipped twice, but Evan steadied her each time. They reached an abandoned market area, where broken stalls created a maze of shadows. Evan guided her through the maze until they reached the old railway line. Rusty tracks stretched into darkness. We'll follow the tracks, Evan whispered. They lead close to the river. Leary nodded, wiping tears with the back of her hand. They walked in silence. The only sounds were distant engines, occasional guard shouts, and the soft crunch of their footsteps on gravel. Minutes passed. Then Evan noticed something unusual. Leary kept touching the memory core, whispering to it. Almost like she was talking to someone, he whispered, Leary, are you okay? She nodded. The core. It is reacting. It hasn't done that before. Maybe it feels danger too. Evan frowned. Machines don't feel danger. Leary looked up at him with her silver eyes. This one does. Before he could ask more, they heard boots. Close. Too close. Stop. A guard shouted from behind. Evan didn't look back. He grabbed Leary and ran. They sprinted along the old tracks. Leary's small legs struggled to keep up, but she held onto Evan's arm. The guards' flashlights lit up the darkness behind them. They were gaining. Evan reached into his bag, pulled out a handful of small metal spheres, and tossed them behind him. The spheres scattered on the track. Boom. A burst of sparks exploded as the guards stepped on them. The sudden flash blinded them, making them stumble. Gah! They have human tech. Spread out. Don't lose them. Evan and Leary used the moment to run deeper into the railway tunnel. Inside, it was pitch black. Evan held Leary's hand tightly as they moved forward. She could barely see, but she trusted his steps. Are we safe? She whispered breathlessly. For now, Evan said. The tunnel opened into a wide maintenance room filled with old metal crates, machines, and dusty lights. Evan stopped near a large pipe. Rest for a minute, he said. Leary sat on the cold floor, holding her core against her chest. The glowing blue light flickered stronger than before. She whispered, Evan, the core is warning us. Evan looked at her. Warning us? About what? Before she could answer, a distant metallic voice echoed through the tunnel. Targets detected. Closing in. Evan stood up sharply. Leary's glowing core pulsed fast, like a heartbeat in panic. Evan, she whispered, voice shaking. They know where we are. And then the lights in the tunnel flickered on one by one, revealing dozens of armored guards. Entering from both ends, they were. Trapped. But Evan stepped in front of Leary anyway. He wasn't stepping back, not now. Not ever. The tunnel lights clicked on one by one, stretching far behind Evan and Leary like a line of glowing traps. Heavy boots echoed through the space, metal scraping against concrete. The guards were coming fast from both sides. Evan's heart pounded. But he didn't move away from Leary. She held the memory core close, its glow brightening with her fear. Evan, she whispered, we're trapped. No, Evan said. Not yet. He scanned the area. Pipes, crates, old machinery, and a rusted metal door to the right. He grabbed Leary's hand. Come on. They ran to the door. Evan pulled hard. It screeched loudly, but opened enough for them to squeeze through. He pushed Leary inside and entered after her. Slamming the door behind them, they found themselves inside an old factory. Dust floated like ghosts in the air. Broken windows rattled. Old conveyor belts stretched across the room. Machines the size of trucks stood silent, covered in webs and rust. It felt like no one had stepped inside for years, but it was a perfect hiding place. Evan pressed his back to the door. Listening, boots thundered in the tunnel. They went through that door. A guard roared. Leary gasped. They know. Evan grabbed a metal beam and wedged it under the doorknob. That should hold them for a few minutes. He turned to Leary. We need to move deeper. They slipped between massive machines, sticking to the shadows. Leary tried to walk quietly, but the floor was covered with tiny bits of glass and metal. Every step risked a sound. Behind them, bang, bang, crack. The guards were slamming into the door. Leary clutched Evan's sleeve. They'll break it. I know, he whispered, pulling her along. That's why we're not staying here. They reached the center of the factory. Huge machinery surrounded them, broken cutters, rusted cranes, old power panels. Evan looked around quickly, searching for something. Anything. He spotted an old control booth above them. A staircase led up to it. Up there, he said. We can see everything from above. They hurried up the stairs. The metal steps groaned under their feet, but the noise was drowned out by the guards smashing down the door at the top. Evan shut the booth door and wiped a layer of dust from the glass. The view below was perfect. Moments later, the factory door burst open. Guards stormed in, dozens of them, flashlights cutting through darkness. Find them! The captain shouted. Leary pressed her back to Evan. She was shaking violently. Evan looked at her and whispered, Listen to me. You're brave. You made it this far. And you're not alone. Leary swallowed hard, her silver eyes filled with tears. What do we do now? Evan opened his engineer's bag. Wires, batteries, tools. Coils of metal, his whole life of work stored inside. We fight smart. he said. He quickly opened an old power panel inside the booth and began connecting wires. Leary watched, confused. "What are you building now?" "A distraction," he said. "A big one." Down below, the guards spread out between the machines. "Scan everything," the captain ordered. "She cannot escape." The humming sound began as several scanners activated. Evan worked faster. "What if they find us?" Leary whispered, her voice breaking. Evan didn't stop moving. "Then we run again. But if this works, they won't know where to look." He twisted the last wire and connected it to the power generator inside the booth. The factory lights flickered. Then sparks burst from the ceiling. Whoosh! Old machines suddenly whirred to life. Conveyor belts shook. Cranes swung. Cutters buzzed. Sparks flew from broken robots. The whole factory turned into a chaotic storm of movement and noise. Guards panicked. "What is happening?" One shouted. "Shut everything down!" Yelled another, but the old machines didn't shut down. Evan had overloaded the system, forcing the factory to wake up like a sleeping beast. I watched in awe. You did this?" Evan smiled. "I told you. Humans try." Now the guards were confused, scattered, blind in the chaos. Evan took Leary's hand. "Now we move." He opened the booth door. They rushed down the stairs, using the noise as cover. A crane crashed on the far side of the factory, making the guards run there. Evan whispered, "Stay low. Follow me." They crawled under a conveyor belt, slipped behind a giant press machine, and reached a side door. Evan touched the handle stop. Error. The memory core, still in Leary's hand, suddenly pulsed fast and bright. "Evan," she whispered, "the core is warning us again." Evan frowned. "Warning us about what?" Before she could answer, boom! The factory wall behind them exploded. Dust and debris flew everywhere. From the smoke stepped a different kind of guard, tall, armored in black with glowing red symbols on his chest. The captain froze. An elite hunter. The hunter pointed directly at Evan and Leary. "There," he growled. "The girl and the human." Leary's grip tightened painfully on Evan's arm. "Evan, he's not like the others," she whispered. "Elite hunters don't take prisoners." Evan stepped in front of her, eyes burning with determination. "Then he'll have to go through me." The hunter raised his weapon. Leary screamed, and the factory filled with blinding red light. The beginning of the final battle. Red light burst across the factory floor like a sudden sunrise made of fire. The elite hunter stood tall in the smoke, his armor glowing with deadly symbols, his weapon aimed directly at Evan and Leary. Dust swirled around him, and his voice echoed like metal scraping stone. "Hand over the girl," he growled, "or die where you stand." Leary squeezed the memory core so tightly that her fingers turned pale. She hid behind Evan, but her small voice trembled out. "Evan, don't." Evan didn't move. He didn't step back. He didn't raise his hands. He simply stood between her and the danger. "No," he said firmly. "You're not touching her." The hunter paused, not expecting resistance from a human. Humans were usually quiet, obedient, fearful. Not this one. "Move," the hunter warned. Evan shook his head. "Not happening." The hunter lifted his weapon higher, but Evan was already reaching into his bag. He pulled out the disruptor, the small device he built earlier. Except now wires were twisted, broken pieces exposed, glowing dangerously. "Evan," Leary whispered. That doesn't look safe." "It isn't," he said, "which is why it will work." The hunter fired. A thin beam of red energy shot toward them, but Evan smashed the disruptor against the floor. Crack! A burst of pure, wild electricity exploded outward. Blue sparks filled the air. Machines shook, lights flickered. The energy beam bent sideways, frying the support beam instead of Evan. The hunter staggered, his armor glitching as the disruptor scrambled his aim. "Run!" Evan shouted. He grabbed Leary and sprinted toward the far end of the factory. The hunter roared and fired again, hitting metal pillars, shattering windows, sending glass raining down. Evan shielded Leary as shards fell like ice. They reached a side door. Evan kicked it open, and cold night air rushed in. They ran out into an abandoned yard behind the factory. But the hunter followed. He stepped through the smoke like a monster born out of fire, his armor damaged but still active. "You cannot escape, human," he growled. Evan kept running with Leary, heading toward the river. The city lights shimmered on the freezing water. A single cargo bridge stretched across the river, guarded on both ends. They couldn't go that way. Instead, Evan dragged Leary toward a lower maintenance platform that led directly over the water. The icy wind whipped around them, and the wooden plank shook under their feet. Leary shivered. "Evan, we're trapped again." Evan looked back. The elite hunter stepped onto the platform, each step cracking the wood beneath him. "You have nowhere left to run," he said. Evan stood tall in front of Leary, his fists clenched. The hunter aimed his weapon. "Give me the core," he said. "Now." Leary looked up at Evan, terrified. I can't give it to him." Evan knelt in front of her. "Leary, look at me." She did. "You're brave," he said softly. "You didn't give up even when everyone else did. Your mother trusted you, and I trust you too." Leary's eyes filled with tears. "But what do we do?" she whispered. Evan smiled gently. "You're not alone anymore." Then he stood up and faced the hunter. "Last chance, human," the hunter warned. Evan didn't move, but Leary suddenly stepped forward. She lifted the glowing core above her head. The wind caught her hair, making it wave like silver mist. "If you take this," she shouted, voice shaking, "people will still know the truth." The hunter laughed. "Child, you don't even know how to activate it." Leary closed her eyes. And the memory core glowed brighter. Brighter. The hunter froze. "Impossible," he growled. Evan stared. "Leary, what are you doing?" Leary whispered. "Mama said the core listens to pure intention. It listens to truth." The core vibrated, sending waves of blue light into the sky. Then boom! A blast of light erupted upward like a pillar reaching the stars. The sky lit up bright blue. For a moment, it looked like daytime. Screens across the city flickered. News towers, ads, public boards, all replaced by the files inside the core. Secret messages, plans for war, lists of victims, recording of council orders. The truth. Everything played for the world to see. The hunter screamed, covering his visor. Stop it!" It was too late. The truth was free. Leary collapsed, gasping. Evan caught her in his arms. From the city, alarms blared, different alarms now. Not hunting alarms, warning alarms. Government alarms. Voices echoed across loudspeakers. "Attention. Citizens, the council has been compromised. Investigations beginning immediately. Elite guards stand down." The hunter looked around wildly. No, this can't. But suddenly, ships arrived above the river. Not enemy ships. Civilians. Dozens of small craft hovered around the platform, shining lights down on Evan, Leary, and the stunned hunter. People began shouting, "Protect the girl! She exposed the truth. She's a hero. And the human too." Evan sighed in relief. Leary opened her eyes and whispered, "Evan, it's over?" He smiled softly. "Yes, you did it." The hunter dropped his weapon and fell to his knees as civilians and neutral officers landed and surrounded him. Leary leaned her head on Evan's chest. "Can I stay with you now?" Evan held her tightly. "Of course," he said. "You're family now." As dawn rose over the city, the river shimmered golden. The world had changed. A child's courage and a human's heart had brought the truth to light. And for the first time in a long time, Leary felt safe, warm, home, with the human who refused to walk away.